afternoon, Your Honor. Jessie Vargas on behalf of the government. Today, the government is requesting 5 years in the Bureau of Prisons for Defendant Owens based upon the seriousness of the offense, her complete failure to comply with pretrial conditions, and her failure to learn from her prior sentences of probation. The defendant here was involved in a violent criminal enterprise with a known violent gang, and she rented stash houses for the gang to complete their criminal activities. Since the very beginning of this case, the defendant has demonstrated that incarceration is the only proper punishment for her actions. When first approached by authorities, she fled. And since then, the defendant has failed to comply with pretrial conditions as per her release conditions. Here, the defendant has failed to obtain employment. Defendant Owens had the specific condition of obtaining employment. And here, not only does Defendant Owens not have employment, but she fails to even shows up to interviews. And although she is required, as per conditions, to reside with her grandmother, the defendant has demonstrated pure disrespect for her grandmother to the point that her grandmother no longer wishes she reside with her and no longer wants to be her third-party custodian. Additionally, despite the fact that she was required to refrain from drug use as a result of pretrial release conditions, she has failed 2 drug tests while on release. The defense has presented the court with a doctor's report. The defense doctor, however, has admitted that T-Bone never assaulted the defendant, she never suffered any repercussions from him, and the doctor admitted that she assisted T-Bone in his criminal enterprise without any apparent hesitation. The Section 3553A factors demonstrate that incarceration is the only proper punishment here. First, the seriousness of the offense dictates that incarceration is necessary. Here, Defendant Owens is involved with a violent gang who is also linked to a recent homicide. The punishment here needs to reflect the seriousness of the offense. The gang here would not be able to fulfill their drug-dealing habits and complete their criminal enterprise without the assistance of Defendant Owens when she leased all of those stash houses. Additionally, adequate deterrence for the defendant is necessary because she has been given probation on 3 separate occasions, and yet she continues to commit criminal offenses. The defendant also violated her prior term of probation and was given an additional extended term of probation due to her prior violation. Additionally, due to her association with this violent gang, incarceration is necessary for protection of the public to protect the community. Here, the defendant has simply not complied with the conditions of her pretrial release. She is unemployed, she even fails to show up for the interviews, and she has not complied with the conditions of her pretrial release. She shows her grandmother pure disrespect, and as such, her grandmother does not wish her to reside with her. So while on probation, Ms. Owens does not have a third-party custodian and does not have an individual who is willing to supervise her in their residence. Additionally, the defendant has failed 2 drug tests, and most importantly, the defendant has been given probation on 3 prior occasions. And what has Defendant Owens learned from her prior 3 sentences of a court granting her probation? Nothing. She continues to engage in criminal behavior. Here, the defendant has a long history of violating probation and violated her last probation. Therefore, incarceration is necessary, and the government respectfully requests this court impose a sentence and remand Defendant Owens to the Bureau of Prisons for 5 years. Thank you.